2020 TUPIT-TERN Symposium Series, Bridges After Incarceration. Tonight's title is Queer Injustice and the Criminalization of LGBTQIA2S+ people in the U.S. I am Hillary Binda, and it's really nice to be without a mask with you all. This was the day when the mask started to feel just deeply suffocating. So I am the director of the Tufts University Prison Initiative and also of Women, Gender, Sexuality Studies at Tufts University. And I want to say a few words very quickly about the Prison Initiative for our guests. We started in 2016 running college classes on the inside. And which is to say behind the walls in prison. We now run several programs. So we run a college degree program as well as what's called an inside out program, where a small group of Tufts students come inside and do a course with a small group of incarcerated people, everybody getting credit and learning from one another. We also now, I'm thrilled to say, have a very exciting program for people who are coming home or who are directly system impacted and have served some time, in some cases a lot of time. And it's a full year program with 4 courses accredited by Tufts. It's a certificate program. It's called My Turn, and I have 3 of those students on the screen with me here, Hector, Arlise, and Rahim. So glad to have you guys here and in the program. We have eight of us total, or eight formerly incarcerated students total, and myself and quite a few Tufts Medford students also participating as co-learners and technology tutors. TUPIT-TERN is an abolitionist project. We are working toward decarceration, and lots of Tufts faculty are involved. We also have an emerging partnership with Brandeis University, and there are lots of ways to become involved. I want to just mention the Petey Green program, which is a wonderful program that's very active at Tufts, where students are trained and help to become tutors on the inside as well as TAs, and we work with a lot of those students at our college degree program inside. So there are many opportunities to get involved for people, faculty, staff, and students, and you can email tufts@tufts.edu or email me directly. I want to acknowledge Claudia Goetta, who's on the screen here as well, for all of her help constantly getting this program going and now keeping it going. So before I introduce panelists, I wanna just express thanks to Tisch College for all of their support and backing. The Tisch College of Civic Engagement is a school of Tufts University. Alan Salamont is our dean, and he's been a phenomenal supporter of this program and project. I want to thank CELT, the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching at Tufts, for their ongoing support. And the departments of not only Women, Gender, Sexuality Studies. Hey, Devon, glad to have you back. But also Theater, Dance, Performance Studies, English, Religion, Anthropology, Sociology. And now also our new partner, a student group that's forming currently called TREE, which stands for Tufts Racial Equity something. And yes, so they are working on the very important effort toward getting Tufts and other institutions of higher education to divest from corporations that do business with prisons and companies that support contract to prisons, so support the prison industrial complex. And finally, just enormous gratitude to all of you on the panel. I'm ecstatic about having you here. I'm really happy that this is the subject of our of our first in-person filled panel. Our first event was a screening of College Behind Bars. Now we have people here, and there's nothing more pressing in my mind than the LGBTQ issues in intersecting with incarceration and the criminal justice system. So it's a huge honor to be on the screen with you, and I really look forward to the conversation we have. I'm going to pass it over to our friend and partner, Mike Cox, who is the president of Boston's Black and Pink, and have him describe the phenomenal Black and Pink organization. And then we'll have everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll go forward with some questions. Just so people know, we have Q&A in the chat. So as audience, as you come up with questions, feel free to put those into, not the chat, excuse me, please put those into the Q&A. Claudia's going to keep track of that. And after we've talked for a while, we're going to open that up, and our panelists will answer questions. So I think at this point, I'm going to have Hector, Arlise, Rahim, and Devon. If you guys can turn your video off, that would be great. Oh, and Calvina's here too. Welcome, Calvina. And Calvina, if you can also turn your video off, because we're going to get started now recording. Great. Okay, Mike.
Beautiful. It was so good to learn a little bit more about everything that y'all are doing at Tufts. I didn't realize the extent at which you guys were providing educational opportunities for impacted folks. Very inspiring. And, you know, it's so good to be on this call with other formerly incarcerated people, either just starting out on their journey to rebuilding their lives, or folks who have been out who are doing that work now. I can't say the difference that education has made in my life and the doors it has opened. And so I just want to encourage y'all to keep doing this good work. And if you're able to get free education, I mean, it's priceless. Okay, so hats off to all of you. And yeah, I am the director of policy for the Boston chapter of Black and Pink. We are an organization that is explicitly abolitionist. We believe in a world without prisons. We believe in the work to dismantle carceral systems. And also the second prong of abolition, which is really doing the work to create beloved communities, right? Providing the resources that our people need to be who they want to be in life. And that takes a lot of different forms in our work. So we do a lot of advocacy work. We do legislative work that's aimed at either ameliorating conditions of confinement or decarcerating our state's prisons and county facilities. Some of the hallmarks of our programs are our Pen Pal program, our bi-monthly newsletter that goes out to our Massachusetts members. We do reentry aid, we do court support, bail support, pretty much at any point within the criminal legal process, we can be there for you in some capacity. And what I love the most about Black and Pink is our family-based values, that we really try to treat ourselves as a family, whether it's volunteers or system impacted people or folks on the inside who maybe we've never met. These family values can really be like a guiding star, right? A North Star as we navigate how we organize and how we move. And when I see all of you as formerly incarcerated people here, that's how I feel. You know, you can just feel the movement in your heart. So it's so good to see all of you. And that's all I'm going to say about Black and Pink. And just a little bit about my personal background. You know, I am formerly incarcerated. And I spent 6 years in the system as an openly gay man. And, you know, a lot of the negative experiences that I went through had to do with solitary confinement, in my queerness, basically jamming up my life, just trying to survive prison on some level. And so I got out. I also went to school. I got my associates, then I got my bachelor's. And that's where I stopped. And it gave me enough background to engage in this work. Even though my lived experience was like a master's degree on its own level, And so when folks say like, we are experts because we have lived through this, that is what they're referencing. People go to school to get their PhD, to get the kind of experience that we have, that we learn through the School of Hard Knocks. And so we should let that be an asset in our lives, and not a liability. So I'll leave it there. I can't wait to hear the introductions from our other panelists.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Love Williams. I'm a formerly incarcerated Black trans woman. I serve as co-chair for two subgroups. One is FIP, which is formerly incarcerated people, and a new reentry subgroup for Black and Pink National. I also work with Black and Pink New York chapter and Boston chapter, and a new board member of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. And I am also the founder of the Gen Love Project, which gives welcome home packages to recently released and soon to be released LGBTQ plus people. Currently, I only serve New Jersey, New York, and Massachusetts, and I plan on expanding very soon.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jen?
I'm in such good company. Hi, everyone. I'm zooming in from occupied Hawaii. I am from Massachusetts. I was born there, but I live here now. I'm also formerly incarcerated. I've been fortunate to get an education myself, and I'm pretty sure that's the only way I didn't end up going back to prison and jail. And I guess I'm a policy focused person. I actually wound up going to law school and got involved with policy. And while I was in law school, I was fortunate to be the lead organizer on a trans and gender nonconforming bill that I helped draft and advocate for, that became law, to add X gender neutral markers to our state IDs and driver's licenses. And then after we were able to do that, I work where I work now, which is a Native Hawaiian serving state agency. And with them, I was fortunate to pass another law, draft it and help pass it, where we reduced the ban the box look back period. So folks who are seeking employment, now they have a little bit better of a chance. And that was derived directly from my personal experience. And all the times I would get actually hired, but then I was denied because of my background. Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you so much, you all, again, for being here. So excited. And just, I want to really echo what Mike just said about how much you all have to teach us, and how phenomenal it is, but also acknowledging how much work it is to transform the kind of trauma and experiences you've had into all of this amazing, productive, exciting, important work. So thank you, because we are all beneficiaries, and so glad that you are home. I want to start, and this might be a question for Jen. The Williams Institute reports that LGBTQ people are 3 times more likely to be arrested and incarcerated. And we all know what happens, the way that the criminal legal system devours Black and brown people. I'm just wondering if you can talk a little bit about how this identity impacted you, and how you feel if you feel it contributed to your incarceration and to your experience of being incarcerated, the time you spent.
No, yes, I'm happy to answer that question.
Great.
So the first time I was arrested, I was like 10 or 11 years old. And I'll never forget, not through the lens I have now, through an abolitionist lens I have now, and through like reading reports from institutions like the Williams Institute, and like GLSEN, and just seeing how the justice system played out for me as a youth, I can completely see how my race and even probably my gender nonconformity at that time played a huge role in the way I was treated. The very first time I was arrested especially just sticks out in my mind so clearly, because I was an honor roll student. I told them this. They felt that it was appropriate to take me out of this grocery store in handcuffs, my friend who I was with, who was white, did not get the same treatment. And they felt that it was necessary for me to go through a judicial hearing and process because this was going to correct me. And I don't, that's just not true. But I'll just never forget that. And then I've, through, of course, like Williams Institute's reports, I've also read about how Black and brown folks were more likely to get in trouble in school. And we talk about the school to prison pipeline. And that's my experience too. So reading these things as an adult and it just kind of like flashing back on my life, I'm just like, oh geez, like that's what that was. And I was young enough that I didn't really, I didn't have that analysis. But now it's like, it like fires me up and it's leading me to do this type of work.
Again, it's phenomenally inspiring that it fires you up in this productive way, because it just seems so overwhelming at the same time. Learning about it after the fact this way, and sort of the way that you're framed and set up at such a young age. So Jennifer and Mike, I'm wondering if you want to take the second question. So while someone's incarcerated, they are, of course, at the mercy of their jailers to provide adequate health care. Can you talk about the unique healthcare needs of LGBTQ people and share any stories you might have?
Okay, I'll take that question.
Okay, great.
Being yourself and being put into an incarcerated situation. Our incarcerated situation itself is traumatizing, but only imagine being out and being positive of yourself, even if you're in the closet. It's already a dehumanizing situation, but they break you down even more, especially if you're out. And me as a trans woman, me being incarcerated, I was used as pawns by officers as well as being there. And my healthcare issues was never met. I signed out the hospital to be sentenced because I didn't want to be handcuffed to a bed. They left me in a solitary confinement situation and left me there for like a month before I ever got proper treatment or anything like that. It took me a full year before I got back on hormones, my psych meds, even seeing a psych or anything. And it took me to have the ombudsman, my mother, my doctor, my PCP prior to prison, as well as my lawyer, for me to get all this in. And this was all given in a pre-sentencing hearing by my doctors and by me, but they don't care. And they barely care about the street inmates in there. So you already know we're even lower than them. They don't care mental health wise. Can you understand what the process would be for a trans woman to be in an all male prison? Everybody either hates you, they want to F you up, or they want to F you. I just want to do my time and go home. It's a process, and medically, nothing was there for me. It took me to have all this whole team from the outside to speak on my behalf for me to get what should have been given to me to begin with. Because if I die on your watch, or if I get iller on your watch, oh, it's nothing, because they're not going to put me in the hospital. They don't want to pay the extra manpower to be with me in the hospital. And the infirmary there can't really care for you when you could have cared for me in the beginning. Let you know.
So you were saying, and just for people who don't know, you were in a men's prison in Massachusetts.
No, not in Massachusetts. In
Okay.
New Jersey.
In New Jersey. Okay. All right. Okay. Mike.
Wow, it's always hard to follow Jen's act up. Wow. It always just takes a moment to let that wash over me. Yeah, so I went to prison when I was 22. And at the time I had braces. And I didn't have my braces serviced for over 2 years. And although not LGBT specific, I don't know, you're supposed to get braces serviced every month. And I kept complaining and writing in about it. And eventually, you know, all my elastics had broken off that held a wire to my teeth. And so the elastics in the back would break off and then like basically stab the inside of my mouth. So I had, the inside of my mouth was just completely cut up. And, you know, I didn't want to take the wire off because I didn't want my teeth to get like rearranged. And so, you know, nothing like terrible came of it, but it is just funny how they couldn't have cared less until eventually, you know, I did convince them, like, you have to at least take them off my teeth. Like, you can't just leave them there. And so that's just one sort of minor, mundane example of how healthcare in incarcerated settings is garbage. And then the other one had to do with my mental health medication that I was incarcerated with. They immediately discontinued some of my medications, saying that they weren't like on some made up schedule, like pre-approved medication that the prison does for cost savings. And so I had to experience that upheaval on top of being incarcerated and the upheaval that that brings, and the mental health strain that that brings. And then while I was when I switched from county facilities to state facilities, I had been called up to my mental health appointment one day, and the appointment was supposed to be at 1, and so I waited for 3 hours for her to show up. And I kind of held her to like civilian standards. And I was like, this is so inappropriate. Like, it's unprofessional that you would leave me waiting there for so many hours. And she told me that if I didn't like it, I could leave. And so I left, making a lot of civilian assumptions that my appointment would be rescheduled. And that is not what happened. Instead, she wrote an incident report and said that I didn't want my medication anymore, that I didn't need them. And when I asked why I wasn't getting my medication anymore at Medline, they told me this. And so it was really like a petty, retributive move on that nurse's part, who's supposed to be professional. And so that was kind of painful. And then I went without any mental health medication for the remainder of my sentence. And all of a sudden, all my diagnoses disappeared. And I had like circumstantial depression, which like, I don't even know what that is, but I was like reclassified so they wouldn't have to give me medication. And, you know, I would just follow that up with that sort of nothing in comparison to what folks living with HIV experience in incarcerated settings, and all of the tireless fights that trans women have to go through to get their hormone treatment, or even to get surgery. Some folks are serving life sentences inside, and they also want to have their transition surgeries so that they can be the people that they feel they are, right? That they know they are. And that's something that, for example, like Massachusetts fought all the way up to the appellate courts in the First Circuit to prevent Michelle Kozlik from ever getting surgery. And so it seems as though they'll go to no end to deny the existence and the validation of trans people and other folks in the system. Thanks.
Wow, thank you so much. Yeah, so important. So the next question is for either Jen or Jennifer, and it's about solitary confinement, which you've already raised, and obviously very connected to health, mental health and physical health. For people who aren't aware, solitary confinement is anywhere from 22 to 23 hours a day being caged. And the UN has called it torture officially after 15 days. Well, has called it torture, and it is deemed illegal after 15 days. In Massachusetts, we have people who are incarcerated legally up to 10 consecutive years. We have several people in our program who have done that much time, and one somewhat famously who's done more than that, consecutive years, 13. And in fact, in Massachusetts, there's basically an entire prison dedicated to these long-term solitary sentences. So Black and Pink did in 2015, their Coming Out of Concrete Closets survey and found that 85% of the respondents, the LGBTQ respondents, had been held in solitary confinement. And I'm wondering if you would be willing to share your sort of path to solitary, your experience in solitary, or any thoughts you have on this archaic practice. Jennifer?
Okay, I'll talk on that. First of all, a lot of prisons and jails, whether it's state or federal, they will say that they don't have solitary confinement, but you talk to any formerly incarcerated person or any incarcerated person, and they do. They just call it something different. It's still solitary confinement. That's first and foremost. Because in New Jersey, at the trans moment, all my solitary confinement was called PC, that I never asked to be in. When I arrived in my county, I'm put in PC. And after 30 days, I was given the opportunity for a meeting, for example, with the lieutenant and the sergeant, raising my awareness of why I deserve to go to population. And I was told, because of my breasts and because of my natural femininity and features, I have to stay here. And I'm like, but is this PC protective custody? What am I being protected from? I never even asked for this. Well, just so you know, it's IPC. And what is that? Involuntary PC. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So you put me here first time for 30 days against my will, and now you're about to keep me in here against my will? Are you kidding me? And I had just a little bit of research on it, and it tells me that you're supposed to come out every like 24 hours or something like that. 1 hour every 24 hours. You're not even letting me out every 24 hours. You letting me out every 32 to 33 hours. Are you kidding me? But there's nothing I can do. That was the beginning of my fight. And then when I got into state's custody, it became worse because I ended up being raped. And then 24 hours later, my rapist and his brethren beat the hell out of me. And New Jersey DOC punished me with 1 year and 95 days of solitary confinement because I wouldn't tell who my attackers were. And this allowed gang members to think that it's okay and there'll be no repercussions. Keep in mind, everybody done snitched on each other, so there's no need for me to tell. But I still got 1 year and 95 days of solitary confinement. And I'm the victim, whether I like that or not. And that was another reason why they left me. Well, another excuse was why medical reasons for me wasn't followed up. And they left me in there. And in there, you don't even shower every day. And that's a 10-minute shower. You should get a 10-minute shower every 48 hours. You get an hour of yard 2 times a week. If you're asleep when they crack that door, or when they come around with the list, and you don't sign on the list to get to the yard, you have nothing. Even the yard is another cage, just your room. So it's like 10 little cages in one big cage, so you still are confined. And I remember sitting here and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how to speak. All mail was kept from me. There's no TV, no radio, no nothing. My mother had a gut intuition. Something was wrong with her child. That's how she knew any of this. And once I got out of that, no, I didn't have an issue with officers and stuff again because they knew that she would go to Trenton, but everybody's not going to be as lucky as I am. And it took me to have to damn near get out of it for her to realize, hold up, my child and reach out to me with a letter or nothing. I can't get nothing. And that right there, I found myself at moments in there just staring at the wall. I'm counting ants crawling in the ceiling over here. Things that normally would ick the hell out of me, but I have nothing. I have no radio, no Walkman, no TV, no books, no nothing. I'm not allowed that for something I didn't even do, but something that the New Jersey was still denied that they don't have. They used to call it ADSAG, and they even changed the name now to restrictive housing. It's the same damn thing.
I can't possibly imagine, but I'm just trying to imagine that feeling of being punished when you've just been punished, and sort of this is the system that's supposed to be somehow arbitrating what's right and wrong and who's getting punished for good and bad behavior, and just how no matter how kind of brilliant you are at reading systems, as obviously you are, so confusing on top of being devastating, just so illogical that I it's pretty unthinkable. So it's incredible that you survived as you did. Um, Jen, did you want to address that also?
Um, I, I just, as far as I'm concerned, solitary confinement is nothing short of state-sanctioned violence. And I think what Jen Love shared really speaks to that. Yeah, trans Black and brown women in prison really get the worst of what carceral facilities have to offer. And thank you so much, Jen, for sharing that with us.
Okay. Um, yeah, so again, for anybody, but maybe Jen Love, I wonder if you can talk a little more about, maybe not specific to solitary, but being transgender in this system.
Living life as a trans woman or trans man is already difficult, and it's an internal battle with society itself. But when you're within prison, which is already, I don't know how to exactly word it, it's already in a hell, like it's basically hell. It's a concrete wood metal hell, and being in here, and it's torture mentally, physically, emotionally, from fellow inmates, um, from officers and staff. And I will admit there will be one or two officers who did their best to look out for me, but they're not going to go against their coworkers. One or two staff members, but they're not really going to go against anyone for me. And I get that. I was just thankful to have someone acknowledge with me sitting here having to suffer, because it's nothing I can do. Me even questioning, me walking to the mess hall, and to sit here and hear an officer tell me, fuck, I hate motherfucker looking at you. You ain't no fucking woman. You in a men's prison. You got a dick too. I should beat the fuck out you. And all I did was turn around and look, grab me by my neck, and threw me against the wall. And it took two lifers to get him off me, but we all ended up in a hole. Again, I've been to solitary confinement more than once. That was the first one. And I remember being at visit, like when I have visits and coming back from visits, it's a strip search, and I wasn't asking for nothing special. Just let me do the procedure. You know the procedure. Let me do all this and put my clothes back on. Because now 11 other inmates get to have a whole peep show along with 12 officers. And this one officer sat there and degraded the hell out of me. He made me sit there and kept doing this to my breasts, and made me still did bend over, holding my ass cheeks open without coughing for like 15 minutes. And I'm a strong person. When I tell you the tears inside of me for a Muslim brother to be next to me, and everything that I am religiously tells him I'm a no. For this man to risk going in a hole to defend me, to watch me break. At that moment in time, all my tears, even upon the attacks and the rapes, I just held them inside until I got to a private space. But at that moment in time, I couldn't. I waited a long time to become the woman that I am. I wanted to cut my breasts off and everything. They put me back on sleep medication. I could not deal with that because I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn. You either hate me, or the ones who looking nice, who are acting nice and seeming respectful at least, you're lusting after me. You want to watch me in the shower, and it's uncomfortable. I just want to do my time and go home. And here in New Jersey, most of the girls here in New Jersey will have criminal records. Who have them, they'll be in PA or in New York. not really too much in Jersey, so it's not a bunch of us. Gay men, yes. And they will make sure that they keep no more than 2 girls at one facility at one time and keep us on different sides of the property to make sure we never have contact. And they even do that with the gay men. Make sure they separate. They don't let too many be in one location.
Why do you think that is?
Because the one thing, even if it's a gay man in there, I have someone, I was that before got to be her. So I have something that lets me know I'm not the only one in here. Closest thing to me is gay man in there. And because I really wasn't seeing women officers and staff members like that. And if me having that would have been a little glimpse of hope. You know, I got somebody to whine to who would know how it feels, but I'm not really having that. When I find 1 or 2, that I can, so you knew me from show life. Oh, thank God. I can't take this. Next morning, I know they're shipping you out. So the one moment of hope that I got to sit with lunch is somebody who's not looking at me, undressing me under my khakis with his eyes over here. A gay man who doesn't want me. They see me just laughing and talking because you know me, not personally, but you knew me as an entertainer prior to this incarceration. Next morning, you're gone.
Wow.
The next 3 gay men that came in, who naturally flocked to me, within 48 hours, y'all were gone.
That the power of those relationships is so threatening. So that power of that, feeling heard and connected and loved is just, it goes against everything about the way the system operates.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Thank you, Jennifer.
One more thing.
Yeah.
Eventually, they gave me a psychiatrist. As I said, everything took like a year before I got everything, which I was already seeing a therapist and a psychiatrist and on psych meds and on hormones before I even go into prison, even getting a charge. Well, my psychiatrist, the therapist, she went on maternity leave, and they brought in this other woman. I cannot remember her name to save my life. Begins with a D. When I tell you, she was one of the saving graces for me. She not only was a therapist, she understood trans people. Her biological sibling is a trans person, so she went to further her education. So to have someone constantly, not just during my regular sessions, come to my cell and have them bring me to her, whether it be, or sit at my cell, come to my cell door just to do a wellness check on me. When they seen that she was supposed to stay, and when she put in requests to keep me, no longer put me with the other person because she understood me, and making it clear that I needed her and she knows that she can give me the help that I need. Oh, she was going to. Even when it came to staff.
Where do you draw your courage from?
I had to take some time, and I became self-destructive. I will admit, I was very suicidal. I didn't want to talk about these things. In my mind, I had a little trap door back here, and everything that's hurtful and that's supposed to break me was put back there, and the trap door started busting open. And I just started self-inflicting harm, and I didn't want to be here. And when they threatened to civically commit me, my therapist and psychiatrist and my family co-signed it, is when I started letting God and my family and my circle that truly meant well for me, truly let them be the anchor that I needed. In my mind frame, I wasn't there when I was being hurt, so I don't want y'all now, but I can't punish them for what others done to me. They didn't know, and they're never going to know unless I open up and tell them. And I know it's going to hurt me, but it's for me to talk about it, because the more tears I shed now, the less tears and the less tears, and eventually it'll be just me and a bullhorn with no tears, no emotion.
Well, we need the tears too. We appreciate so much everything that you're sharing. It's all part of it. So much so much inspiration, and I'm really kind of overwhelmed with what you've shared and so grateful. So your strength is what's overwhelming. So I don't know if either Jen or Mike want to talk about the transgender experience inside, either directly or reflecting.
I have a, I have a few quick reflections that I'd like to share, and I'd like to also leave room for Jen to hop into. Um, I knowingly met the first transgender person while I was in state prison. And, I didn't know what to think as like a gay person. I knew they were like family, but I didn't really know what to think. Um, so we were actually on the same transport van, me and this woman, Charlene, going to the same prison together. And so we formed like a bond being queer people in the van, as a lot of bonds get formed. And it was funny that when I got there, the prison completely vilified her to me. They consistently accused her of like nefarious like intentions of being friends with me, um, would insinuate that like she was dangerous, would sort of like try to coax something out of me to like say something that was happening that wasn't. And I didn't have any analysis at the time or like the knowledge to know that like these are myths constantly perpetuated about trans people. And that was a really transformative experience for me to see what they were doing for myself, that they were actually trying to turn me against her, and they were trying to make sure that two queer people couldn't be friends in prison. And I think it was really the fantasy in their own heads, more than any reality that was happening.
Mm.
And that was really transformative for me. And we actually became best friends. We remained best friends while we were incarcerated, but we were constantly investigated. And like I was very young going into prison. I was like 22. I probably looked 17 at the time. I was like a hot number, right, coming through. And there were a lot of people that would try to press up on me. And I will tell you how many people that trans woman stopped from perpetuating harm against me, and how many other trans women in that prison took me under their wing because I was so green, and I could not have survived that system without them. And so while trans women go through hell in prison, I'll also say that the community that they form around them and the protection that they create when we're able to congregate together is invaluable to making sure that other queer people can survive this system, because the guards aren't going to do it for us, right? So we do it for ourselves. And this narrative that like trans women like are sort of like leaves in the wind, like is also it can be complexified, right? Some of these trans women also they would just beat you to a pulp also, if you misstepped. Not all of trans women have that ability, but I also say that I saw that happen, and I want to share that another narrative of a different kind of strength that happens. And I'm so grateful, and I can't imagine what my life would have been like doing that time without them there protecting me. And that is in fact one of the reasons why I do crusade for trans women, because I know what they have done for me, and I know how we are stronger together.
It's amazing. Thank you, Mike. Jen?
I mean, they've said so much. I'll just say a little bit to it. Yeah, prisons and jails and just participate in the erasure of varying gender. So like for me, when I was incarcerated, it was always in the women's side of prisons, but that doesn't accurately reflect my gender identity at all. And so yeah, the way that trans women are treated, but then there's just, if you're a trans man or if you're non-conforming or non-binary, you're not getting the healthcare you need on that side either, and you're being placed according to your sex assigned at birth, which just can like decimate a person's mental health while you're incarcerated.
Right.
So I just wanted to speak to that.
Like just a constant reminder. Yeah.
Exactly.
Blow after blow. Do you want to pick up on sort of what the, so for people who aren't aware of this term reentry, I've used it already, but this idea that there's a real process in transitioning from incarceration back home or back to the community. I'm wondering if you can talk about specific needs and challenges of LGBTQ people in that transitioning process.
Sure. I mean, the transitioning process, I think it really varies by jurisdiction. So like my experience is a lot different than what I know happens in like other states. I do know that, and this will come back to trans people, especially like affirming reentry services are few and far between. Especially, I mean, here in Hawaii, it's we really need a lot of work as far as affirming gender identity goes, because that's going to be our, like, as a queer or trans person, your first point of entry once you leave. You want to have who you are like honored. You don't want to encounter homophobia or transphobia. Like, you've just gone through extremely traumatizing experience, most likely. And that reentry point is really key. And it's almost like the state violence just continues if the services aren't there. And in my experience, I was fortunate that there were some services, but I know, like, just from who I speak to now, that there's less, in Hawaii at least, there's less funding going there. So yeah.
Yeah, things are pretty chaotic in Massachusetts too. I don't know if you would agree with that, Mike, but that's what I've seen in the last couple of years. Not
Yeah.
a whole lot, nothing very coordinated, very sort of individual based. So you're relying on people not being homophobic or transphobic, and I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that I'm on the special commission to study the health and safety of LGBTQ prisoners. And when I asked them, like, okay, so we sent out like a questionnaire to the DOC and to the county facilities and asked them what their LGBT specific reentry resources look like, they said they don't have any. They don't give those out to anybody because they don't know of any. And, on one hand, that is the fault of the facilities because they do exist. But on the other hand, it's not like they're so plentiful that like it's hard to miss. You do have to look for them. And so it's a both and situation where the DOC doesn't even want to acknowledge that queer people have unique needs. They just want to have like a one size fits all model. But we know that just doesn't work for all the reasons Jen just said. And then on the other hand, I find it almost funny in like the awful kind of way that this state will dump so many resources into arresting, prosecuting, incarcerating people for some of the most minor offenses. And I don't even know how much money is dumped into that system, but it's astronomical. But then all of a sudden, when we talk about reentry, all of a sudden there's no coins in the purse, and yet like the logic is like, it's so linear, the way the system is secular, actually. Right? But then when it comes time to reentry, it's like people need housing. We need affirming healthcare. We need affirming mental health. We need all the basic things that anyone needs to grow and develop. And the conversation's so often a non-starter for people. And it's so antithetical to the people that are so law and order oriented. Because it's about investment. Like, why would you spend $70,000 incarcerating somebody and not do a goddamn thing for them? Why would you not be begging Hillary to come into every prison in Massachusetts to teach a course? So this whole idea of corrections, like their actions is, they undermine themselves. They can say they're about public safety and they can say that they're about corrections, but we know this to be false. We know this to be a lie. And we know that that's really a PR campaign because we know they're just looking to incapacitate us. We know they're just looking to punish us.
Kind of goes to the next question, which is I wanted to ask you if there was a single policy that you would change if you could, and why. But maybe I won't jump the gun on the policy I'm thinking about asking you about. Do any of you want to take that one?
Thinking about this question, I want to say, I want to name one policy, but I work in policy and not one policy is going to do it. So my answer to that is I want to abolish police and I want to abolish prisons. That's the policy I want to change. And there's a bunch of things that spring off from that. There's laws and policies that hold up those two institutions of violence, and I want them both gone.
So I guess what is on the top of my head, of course, I agree with everything Jen just said. I guess what's on my spirit is life without parole sentences. I think it's symptomatic in a lot of ways of how we feel people are disposable, how we can just throw away an entire life, and the irony in it almost, because most people serving life with, or a lot serving life without parole sentences have taken a life. And so I think it's funny that we take a life and then we basically throw another life away. But we say that life mattered so much we can terminate another life through death, through incarceration. And so I think that if we were able to peel that back and not have life without parole sentences, I think that the conditions that would be needed to make that happen would have a ripple effect, right? So it would have to actually be a radical shift in the way we think about incarceration and redeemability. And so I think that that kind of shift would ripple out into a lot of other policies where we actually see the humanity in people. And I'd hope that that would be one of the linchpins that kind of like make this system topple over.
Until we can end incarceration, period. I do know that a great deal of trans people are sex workers. And it's not fair that they be criminalized for making a living, let alone if they happen to be put in jail or in prison, they come home to have to be put on the registry. And that is, I don't understand the process and train of thought of that. Nobody's ever gonna make me understand that. I don't care. Even if I didn't like the sex worker, that's just stupid.
So you mean the sex offender registry?
Yes. How is that? Because I gotta do what I gotta do to make my rent and everything else, and I gotta go be on here as a sexual deviant. Really? Mm-hmm. That's just not adding up to me.
Mm-mm. Right, and once you're on that registry, all sorts of doors close. To put it mildly.
Living
enough to be a felon.
And yeah, that's something that I've been really, really focused on. And obviously the criminalization of HIV. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes.
Great.
Did you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that was perfect.
Things bother me. I will admit I was naive about the situations before. I didn't think they were real. But as time goes on and I have met a great deal of formerly incarcerated people who are on the registry and their charge is prostitution, or they're on the registry because their charges, their crime allegedly was because they're HIV positive, and so they're also on the registry. So you're looking at a registry and you just cut everybody's already struggle and made it worse for no reason.
That's incredible.
9 out of 10 times, this is going to affect gay men, trans women, and women.
Mm-hmm.
Categories.
Mm-hmm. And makes so many jobs impossible.
Living impossible.
Living. Mm.
Because you can't live in certain locations because it's housing complexes, or it's near a park, it's near a school, near a playground.
I have a couple questions that are, I don't know, related. I want to know how you see the role of formerly incarcerated LGBTQ people in the abolitionist movement. And also, either or, the role of non-queer identified, formerly incarcerated people in the LGBTQ movement, in the movement for LGBTQ lives.
I'll go first.
Okay, great.
My mic was up. I've got to mute myself before. I'm sorry. For me, I can admit that with the privileges that I already had, I was green to a lot. Enduring what I had to endure, I don't want no one after me to ever have to endure that. And then, so that makes me want to sit here and make sure I do what I need to do. And that's this process of last couple of years of me meeting and doing more work, not just within myself and my own location, go outside. So therefore they can help me get the fundamentals that I need by working with them in their areas and bringing it back to my area, and still continue to work on, and let's branch on some more to end everything all together. And I just want to see here. And initially I was a person who had these traumas, suffered in silence, and I chose to put those traumas to good use, to go ahead and speak and go ahead and fight for the voiceless and for my voiceless sisters and brothers. And at the same token, make sure I keep a space in my heart and in my head to constantly keep learning, because it's always going to be underhanded things. There's always going to be new laws. If they change, they give you a spoonful of sugar right now, they dumping a whole thing of milk right on top of it tomorrow, just to make sure what they gave you doesn't even taste. And I want to make sure that I keep learning, so me and everybody I work with and get affiliated with, so we can always stay right on y'all heels or one step above y'all. Because if we don't do that, then we all gonna lose. Not just them, but not just us, but them as well. And for that, the allies who are truly allies, which is the non-queer identifying people, if you truly want to be there for us and be a voice for us, one, understand we need you, because sometimes you guys can sit here and get into the spaces that we can't. Get in there, talk for us, and make sure you bring us along to give us a seat at the table, because no one can speak better for us than us. One. Two, you can't sit here today and in my face and in our faces and at our tables and be like you're all for us and you want equality for us and you want better treatment for us, and you say that you know that we are dehumanized way more than the rest. Don't sit here with us and say that and go tomorrow and go at your own table or the other cisgender straight table and say, oh, F them. Don't bring us along for a grant unless you're gonna give us a seat at the table so we can continuously lose the grant. Don't bring us here just to get the grant and then kick us out. Be here. Unity can get so much done.
Very inspiring. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, I congratulate anybody who gets involved in this work, abolition work specifically, or mutual aid work. But I think it's important to have formerly incarcerated people doing this work, because we've lived it and we know firsthand what these systems are like. And we kind of know like what we need to be safe, to be healthy, and to be resourced in the way that we need. And so sometimes when you have people that aren't directly impacted, sometimes they can like call a shot that doesn't fully understand the implications it has on people, right? And there's something about advocating for somebody, and then there's something about someone advocating for themselves, right? And that's really beautiful, is when you can have people expressing and articulating what they need through their own autonomy and agency. And so I think that's in part why it's so important to have queer and trans formerly incarcerated people in the movement. And like Jen was saying, often we get left out of the analysis, whether it's intentional or not intentional, we do get left out. And so we will always make sure our analysis is present just by our very existence in the space. We will be, you know, our lives and our bodies can also be a reminder to other people that we exist. And so I know that just my presence in rooms sometimes can get other people doing LGBT advocacy work, right? Or being like, oh, but we didn't think about it from this point of view. And so I think that that's really critical, and having that gendered analysis is so important for all the reasons that everyone's been speaking about on this panel today.
I think Mike and Jennifer really said it all. Yeah, I think we're looking for accomplices. Like, I don't even want allies anymore.
Ah!
And yeah, that's
Sign me up.
That's how I feel
Yeah.
at this point.
Love that. Accomplices. All right. Well, so we have our first question is from somebody who teaches inside with me, who's a faculty member at Tufts, Bridget, at Fletcher, actually, the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy, and is a leader in the World Peace Foundation. And she's speaking directly to Jennifer, saying, your courage and strength of mind and character astounds me. I hope you know we're listening with enormous respect for you. And thank you, Bridget, because I'm sure there are many people, I'm sure everybody is feeling that right now, for all of you. What kept your head above water at the most difficult moments?
I don't know how I describe it these days to people. Is that it was a strength in me that I didn't know that I had. I guess it's similar to the porcupine and stuff like that. You roll up into a ball and just let your spike show. I don't know. I cannot actually put that into words other than saying that that was a part of me. That was a survival mode. I've always heard that the natural human has a survival mode that we normally don't know. And I guess that was the moment when I went into survival mode and not know everything. I've seen things on TV. I will be honest. Prior to that moment, I never been stopped by a cop, a car, or anything like that. So this was all news to me. I may have dated a guy or two who've been locked up, but I've never physically been to the jail and not like that until this moment in time. And the simplest things, like Mike was saying earlier about the dentist situation, the simplest things that I'm thinking as natural human things to me being stripped, but I have a whole new train of thought and now, and I constantly get on people, and I know I become the nagging mother, but I just be reminding them, be mindful. You know what's going on in the world right now. I don't need you to end up back in my shoes. Get it together. And moments like that, I don't know, it's just a natural instinct inside me that I didn't know that I had. I don't want to go through it again now.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, and then we have our fabulous Lynn Sullivan, who says, can you talk about, who's now the managing director for Massachusetts of the PD Green program, who says, can you talk about what the difference, the different welcomings you received in a man's prison or a woman's prison? What treatments were different in each, amongst each other? And then she adds, I love you.
Well, New Jersey only has one prison. Being there, it wasn't pleasant. Towards the end, like halfway through, things got better, obviously due to my mother and lawyer, but it took me to, then I said that survival mode. There was a survival mode in me that I didn't know was there. And when I say that, I mean that what I realized is that, as I stated earlier, that they either wanted to F me up or you wanted to F me. So being that you had me at Rollway State Prison, which is at the time with a lot of lifers there, I made it my point to surround myself with lifers and remind them, if you let them hurt me, you'll never be able to have a free show in the shower ever again. Because instead of watching a flick book and cashing in, you can stay in your cell door and look at me because the shower is completely open. You're gonna lose that whole thing if you let them hurt me. And I had to do, I feel slack of a person, but I had to make sure that I was never hurt again.
Mm-hmm. And so we have the question here, hello. how can we implicate ourselves in the struggle for prison abolition and LGBTQ rights while incarcerated? That's an interesting question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I know that we have a student in our program at Concord who is out, queer and out, and have learned a lot from him about the pain that he's gone through and ongoing assaults. And he knows about this panel and was really just uplifted knowing that you all are here. So I want to say that and thank you for that. When he's out, he's going to be part of this panel with you and part of the community. But so this is an interesting sort of take on that. So while incarcerated, how do you do this work?
That's a really good question. And you know, I was mentioning my friend Charlene, my trans friend from prison, and there was something about her that I never understood, and that was that she never stopped struggling. She never stopped being in tension with the system and the administration. And you know, I was very green. I would say, like, Charlene, don't you just want to fall back and like relax? And you know, you're getting up there, and don't you want to just retire? And I didn't understand her spirit then. But now that I have more analysis and understanding of exactly the beast of the system that we're working with, I do understand her struggle more. And I now see her as an abolitionist, someone who is constantly in tension with the system until the system no longer exists, right? Until they are no longer her captors, right? Her jailers. And so I think that there are people who are incarcerated who are abolitionists, whether they articulate that and know that for themselves, or whether they just know it in their spirit, like they'll never rest until they're free, kind of a thing. But anyways, if you were to encourage people to get into abolition outside of Charlene, I think that there are a lot of ways to do that. I think that Malcolm X did that. I think Malcolm X educated himself. I think that he studied the laws, he studied the systems, and I know that a lot of jailhouse lawyers do that as well when they're inside, right? And you know, that really prepares you to be in struggle with the system. And then if you are able to get out, you know, you now have like this awesome framework from which you can use as a springboard to tackle more work, and you kind of like know the system and the map that the system has created to protect itself and to vilify us.
Yeah. Thank you. Jen, I didn't know if you were reaching to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I was like debating about it. Angela Davis does a lot of, and like other prison abolitionists, organizers and activists do a lot of work with like political prisoners. Mumia Abu-Jamal comes to mind as one of the more like famous incarcerated people that she does work with, and other abolitionists do work with. So I think it is possible to be an abolitionist from the inside. I was fortunate to do another panel with Black and Pink where we had someone call in from a prison. So yeah, if you're incarcerated, we can be in struggle together. I think it's important to note, and it was talked about earlier, that it's so difficult to get in touch with these prisons and to like build those connections because they make it so hard. The facilities make it so hard, but I don't think that we should ever stop trying to remember the human beings that are locked in cages. I think that connection is really important.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for. So I want to go next. We've got a couple comments from our sister here, Stacy Borden, who I bet at least I know Mike knows, who's one of our My Turn partners, as is Lynn. And Stacy writes, thank you for being so courageous and sharing your painful experiences. I love each of you, and I'm so honored to be in this plight to end this oppression of incarceration. Has anyone taken any action against the prison for the harm caused? And maybe just to finish that, she adds, I'm supporting a fabulous trans woman that has a past assault and other harm caused to her while serving a sentence, maybe a class action suit against the DOC as we continue to defund, dismantle this cruel system.
I will admit that this has been something that a few people have pressed me for to do, but I had to tell people now one of the reasons why I didn't. I wouldn't have done it while I was still inside. I needed to make sure I got out of there safely. But upon being home, my cousin messed around and got himself jammed up. And they know who he is when it comes to me. So the last thing I need is for him to have repercussions of me, which we all know will happen.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my whole life is sort of been dedicated, right, to like taking them to task for what they've done to me and what they did to my friends while they were inside. And I don't know if that will ever result in a class action lawsuit. You know, the way the laws are written, you kind of surpass statute of limitations and you lose your right to file a claim. And the case law is so not in our favor, right? The system will always protect itself. And so a lot of those remedies aren't available to me. And I'm not sure that a class action lawsuit would be what we need to really sort of, I don't know, launch that death blow to the system, right? I'd rather spend my time organizing, being in solidarity with incarcerated people. And yeah, I do kind of imagine my life being dedicated to really holding the system accountable and to finding solutions and alternatives to its existence.
Stacy's sending love back at you, Michael. So I want to, we have about 3 minutes to close here, and I'm just thinking about all of the students who are on this call, this webinar, and in fact one of them just popped in. Just wanted, he wants to fact check the links to the Mass Bail Fund and the Gen Love Project. Thank you so much. Do any of the three of you have thoughts you want to share with all of these students who are, you know, really eager to take part in abolition in whatever way they can? Do you have thoughts, advice for them, sort of quick advice in these parting few moments?
I'll say this. There is no right way. There is no wrong way for you to get up here and tell your truth and for you to fight for the injustices done to you and injustices done to others. You sit here and be the best you that you can be. If this is your calling, you're never going to know until you give it a shot. Every voice has a reason. Every person is somebody.
Great. Thank
Second
you.
all that.
we all second that. Great. All right. Well, we are wrapping up, and I just want to encourage all of the attendees to stay in touch with Black and Pink. Keep following Black and Pink. Keep in touch with TUPIT and My Turn.